The Davenport Gazette, April 22, 1856. Page 3. Buried between advertisements for wagon repairs and notices of land auctions, a single paragraph. 73 words, describing a discovery that should have rewritten American history. Workmen excavating a cellar at the corner of Main and Valley Streets have uncovered a stone vault 10 feet below the surface, sealed with mortar of extraordinary hardness. The vault, measuring 10 feet square with walls 14 inches thick, contained 8 human skeletons of remarkable size, the smallest approximately 8 feet in length, arranged in deliberate formation. That's it. The entire report. No follow-up article. No scientific investigation mentioned. No explanation of what happened to the remains. Just 73 words. Then silence. For 168 years. This vault shouldn't exist. Not in 1856 Iowa. Not 10 feet underground on virgin prairie. Not with mortar so hard it broke iron tools. Not containing 8 skeletons, twice the size of normal humans. Iowa in 1856 was frontier territory. Sod houses, wooden structures, basic survival construction. The kind of engineering described in this newspaper, stone vaults with 14-inch walls and advanced mortar, didn't exist there, couldn't exist there, according to everything we're taught about frontier America. And yet, there's the newspaper, casual, matter-of-fact, reporting it like news of a barn raising, as if discovering 8-foot skeletons in an underground vault was just another Tuesday in Iowa. The mortar alone destroys the official timeline, one of such hardness that tools broke attempting to penetrate it. Materials engineers I consulted identified this description as matching Roman pozzolanic concrete, a mixture using volcanic ash and lime, technology that existed 2,000 years ago in the Mediterranean. Technology that supposedly didn't reach America until the late 1800s. Technology that requires specific knowledge of chemistry and material science, but there it was, in 1856, in Iowa, protecting something 8 bodies, 8 feet tall, minimum, because the newspaper says the smallest measured 8 feet, meaning others were larger, 9 feet, perhaps 10. Arranged in deliberate formation, not thrown in, not scattered, arranged, by a culture sophisticated enough to engineer permanent burial structures, by a society that understood preservation, by people who intended these remains to last. And then, gone, all of it, the vault, the skeletons, the evidence, erased, as if it never existed, except for those 73 words in a frontier newspaper. Hit subscribe right now. Because this newspaper report isn't isolated. It's the beginning of a pattern that appears in dozens of newspapers across America throughout the 1800s. Discovery, documentation, disappearance, daily uploads, exposing what vanished from official history. You need to see what comes next. But before we trace that pattern, we need to understand something about this vault that the newspaper doesn't explain. How did frontier workers know to dig there? Look at the description again. 10 feet below the surface. Cellars in 1856 Iowa weren't dug 10 feet deep. 6 feet was standard, maybe 7 in rare cases. 10 feet? That's not a cellar. That's a mining shaft. That's intentional deep excavation. Now here's what a typical 1856 Iowa cellar excavation looked like. Workers would dig 6 feet down, hit bedrock or clay, stop, build the cellar, move on. 10 feet requires specific tools, additional labor, extra time, extra cost. Why would anyone dig that deep for a cellar? Unless they were looking for something. Unless someone told them to dig deeper. Unless. This wasn't the first time something was found there. The newspaper says workers uncovered the vault, as if they stumbled upon it. But you don't stumble upon something 10 feet underground. You dig deliberately. You dig with purpose. You dig because you know, or suspect, something is there. County records from April 1856 show something interesting. The construction permit for the building at Main and Valley Streets, issued March 15, 1856, Normal permit, standard fees. But there's a notation in the margin, handwritten. Deep excavation authorized. Deep excavation for a cellar. Authorized by whom? The notation doesn't say, but someone knew, before digging began, that this excavation needed to go deeper than normal. Why? What did they expect to find? Or what did they already know was there? The local historical society has fragments of a diary, dated 1854, 2 years before the vault discovery. A farmer mentions old stories from the Indians about stone rooms under the prairie where the tall ones sleep. The tall ones. Indians in the area reportedly avoided certain sections of land, considered them sacred or cursed, depending on the translation. These weren't random superstitions. These were specific locations, one of which, according to the diary, was near the corner of Main and Valley Streets, the exact location where workers in 1856 dug 10 feet down and found exactly what the stories described, stone rooms containing the tall ones. Now the pattern makes sense. This wasn't accidental discovery. This was deliberate excavation, based on knowledge. It passed down through stories that were old when the first Europeans arrived, stories about giants buried in stone vaults. Under the Iowa prairie, the workers found what they were looking for, 8 skeletons, just as the stories described. And then, someone made them disappear. Here's where the pattern expands beyond Iowa. The Marietta Times, Ohio, November 1883. Excavation of ancient burial mound reveals skeletal remains measuring 7 to 9 feet. Mound construction shows evidence of advanced architectural knowledge. Remains transported to Smithsonian Institution for study. Notice, transported to Smithsonian, official transfer, for scientific study. No study ever published, no acquisition record exists. The Wisconsin Decatur Republican, February 1891. Discovery of enormous skeletons in burial mounds near Madison. Bones of gigantic stature found in structures demonstrating sophisticated construction techniques. Scientific examination pending. No examination ever conducted. No specimens in university collections. The Kentucky New Era, August 1871. Railroad excavation uncovers bones of enormous size, estimated 8 to 10 feet in length. Specimens sent to medical facilities for examination. Sent. Documented as sent. Never arrived, or arrived and disappeared. Same pattern. Discovery reported in local newspapers. Size estimates consistent, 7 to 10 feet. Sophisticated burial structures mentioned. Remains supposedly sent for scientific study. Then institutional silence. Complete. Coordinated. As if these discoveries triggered a protocol. Document locally. Report the find. Transfer to official institutions. Then erase all trace. The timeline reveals something crucial. These reports cluster. 1850s through 1890s. Peak discovery period. Newspaper reports appear regularly, dozens of them. Multiple states, Kentucky, Ohio, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Iowa, all describing the same thing. Giant skeletons, 7 to 10 feet, in sophisticated burial structures. Then around 1900, sharp decline. By 1920, reports become rare. By 1930, virtually non-existent. What changed? Construction didn't stop. The excavation accelerated through the 20th century. More railroads, more buildings, more land development, more opportunity for discovery. Newspapers didn't stop covering archaeology. Coverage increased. Museums expanded. Public interest grew. So what changed? The reporting stopped. Not the discoveries, the reporting. As if instructions were issued. These finds are no longer newsworthy. These discoveries are no longer scientific priorities. These remains are no longer to be collected, not through official decree, through institutional consensus, through coordinated silence. Back to that Iowa vault. Look at the newspaper photograph that accompanied the original article. The image shows the excavation site. Workers standing around the open vault. You can see the scale. Look at the thickness of the walls, 14 inches. Compare that to the workers' shoulders. These aren't simple stone slabs. These are engineered blocks, cut with precision, fitted together, sealed with mortar that resisted iron tools. Notice the depth, 10 feet down. The workers are standing in a pit, their heads barely visible above ground level. That's not casual excavation. That's serious digging. And look at their expressions. Not excitement, not curiosity, something else. Concern, perhaps fear, as if they found something they wish they hadn't, something they knew, should have stayed buried. The materials engineer I consulted said something that stuck with me. Mortar that breaks iron tools isn't just strong, it's engineered to resist penetration. That's not accident, that's intention. Someone wanted that vault to stay sealed. Someone did. For how long? The newspaper doesn't date the vault, doesn't attempt to estimate its age, but the construction technology suggests antiquity. Roman-style pozzolanic concrete, that dates it, either to Roman times, impossible in Iowa, or to a culture that possessed Roman-level knowledge, equally impossible, according to the official timeline. But there it was, 10 feet under Iowa soil, sealed, protecting, preserving, 8 bodies of extraordinary size. Bodies that someone, long ago, he cared enough about to build permanent structures, to use advanced materials, to seal them against time. Why? Who were they? What did they represent? Why the enormous effort to preserve them? And why, when finally discovered? Were they immediately removed from history? What should have happened is obvious. 1856, discovery of human remains of unprecedented size in an engineered structure using advanced construction technology, the largest skeletal discovery in American history. This demands investigation. University archaeologists should have descended on the site. The Smithsonian should have claimed the remains. Medical societies should have studied the bones. Anatomists should have measured every dimension. Artists should have created reconstructions. Scientific journals should have published findings. Museums should have displayed the skeletons. This should have been front-page news for months. Instead, 73 words, one day, then nothing, as if powerful forces decided. This discovery never happened. The official explanation for all of this: these were not giants. These were misidentified. Size estimates were exaggerated. Frontier newspapers were unreliable. No physical evidence exists because no extraordinary remains ever existed. Fine. Explain the pattern. Explain why dozens of newspapers across different states in different decades all exaggerated in exactly the same way. 7 to 10 feet. Every time. Not random variations. Not 6 feet one report, 15 feet another. 7 to 10 feet, consistently. Explain why descriptions consistently mention sophisticated burial structures, stone vaults, layered mounds, advanced engineering. Why would frontier newspapers fabricate identical architectural details? Explain why remains were documented as sent to the Smithsonian multiple times, different states, different decades, all supposedly sent, none acquired. That's not exaggeration. That's systematic removal. Here's what I think happened. The Iowa Vault, and dozens like it, were known about. Long before 1856, indigenous peoples knew, passed down stories. Away avoided the sites. Early settlers heard the stories. Some believed, some dismissed, but the knowledge persisted. When construction began, when excavation happened, workers sometimes found what the stories described. Stone vaults, giant skeletons, just as described. Local newspapers reported it because it was remarkable, because it was true, because they saw it. But then someone arrived, from official institutions, from government agencies, from academic authorities. They took the remains, promised study, promised publication, promised preservation. Instead, they ensured silence. not through conspiracy, through protocol, through institutional procedure, through systematic, quiet, coordinated erasure. The Iowa Vault exists in that strange space, documented enough to be undeniable, erased enough to be forgotten, real enough that a newspaper reported it, gone enough that no evidence remains. We know it happened. We have the report, we have the photograph, we have the county notation, we have the diary reference, but we can't study it, can't examine it, can't verify it, because the physical evidence disappeared into institutional darkness. Like hundreds of similar discoveries, all reported, all documented, all vanished. 8 skeletons, gone. But somewhere, in an unmarked storage room, in a forgotten archive, in a private collection no one admits exists, in a sub-basement no researcher accesses, those bones might still exist, unless they don't, unless they were destroyed, deliberately, systematically, to ensure we never ask. Who were you? Why were you so tall? Why were you buried with such care? Why did someone use Roman technology in Iowa, centuries before America was discovered, to preserve you, to protect you, to ensure you lasted, and why? When finally found, does no one want us to know you existed? What do you represent? What truth were you evidence of? What history were you proof of? And why must that history remain buried, not under Iowa soil, but under institutional silence? The vault is gone, filled during construction, paved over, lost beneath modern streets. The skeletons are gone. No museum displays them. No university studies them. No institution admits they exist. But the 73 words remain. The Davenport Gazette, April 22nd, 1856. Page 3, still in the archive, still readable, still describing the impossible. And those 73 words refuse to be erased. Someone found you. Someone documented you. Someone made sure that even though your bones disappeared, your existence was recorded, preserved, in ink, on paper, in a newspaper archive that still exists. 168 years later, 8 skeletons, 8 feet tall, in a vault beneath Iowa. You were real. You were here. You were found. And someone desperately wants us to forget, but we won't. Not anymore. The 73 words remember, and now, so do we.